Yes, welcome. So today's webinar, I seem to be doing a few more of these, which again, just talking there about some of the negatives of working from home. One of the positives certainly is it's much easier to go and visit and talk to clients and potential clients as we can by webinar or online meeting than I ever used to do. So today is actually, despite being a humble engineer, today's subject is one that I actually find a lot of fun and I've always been kind of really interested in, which is the idea of innovation and creativity. And the focus today is, I guess, looking at some of the experiential learning tools and methodologies that might support innovation and creativity. So the first thing I want to do is just have a little bit of an exploration about what we mean by that and what I mean by that, particularly in relation to learning or teaching, I guess, innovation and creativity. And I'm going to be asking you guys to participate. So hopefully you will indulge me and turn on your mics and play along. So it's not going to be a long lecture today by any manner of means. We're then going to touch on some of the features of some tools and resources that we have that might help build innovation and creativity skills, and that's really going to be the focus, to give you a kind of an introduction of quite a variety of those and hopefully stimulate some ideas for you in terms of innovation and creativity. But as always, I always like to just check in with the people who have joined the call live, and I guess those who are watching can answer these as well. But just a couple of questions. So if you wouldn't mind just answering in the chat, I can open that. So a question, give me a yes or a no, and then maybe a one-sentence explanation. But do you think most people are creative and innovative? So just drop a little answer to that in chat. I like that, Isabel. Yes, they just ignore it. Okay. Yes, if they want. Okay, good. Yeah, Emma's a very positive person. I know that. I truly believe we all are, sometimes hidden away and we need to coax it out. Yep, absolutely. And everyone has a different perspective to bring. Yes. So I would hope that dealing with trainers and facilitators, that would be our approach. But I'm interested, what do you actually observe? What can you see for those people who you think are creative and innovative, or you know to be? What do you observe about them? Okay, they're curious. Yep, they dare. Any other thoughts about what you would actually see? They're confident. They've got drive and engagement. Yep, I would agree, Lucy. Some think it is the same. Yep, good point, Suzanne. They're happy to fail. Yep, I like that one, Emma. It's a wonderful thing to walk into an organization, a consultant, and say, we're going to help your people to fail more or be happy when they fail. But absolutely. And then another one. So do you think people can learn to be more creative and innovative? Is it something that you're innate and you're born with, or can we learn to be more creative and innovative? Yep, lots of yeses. They can unlock thinking. Yep. Always learning. Absolutely, Emma. So someone mentioned this earlier on. Some people think they're the same. The people who are on the call just now, do you notice or think about any differences between these two words, creativity and innovation, or are they interchangeable as far as you're concerned? Okay, Isabel suggesting innovation is when it's applied. Similar, but innovation has the idea of improvement. Laura, yep, I would agree. Yep, and for me, Suzanne, I think that's the key. particularly in the kind of audiences that we work with. So we're usually working with either commercial organizations or organizations of some kind who have a purpose, and innovation is about, I guess, trying to move that purpose forward. I mean, Emma's saying they're interchangeable, and often we find when talking to clients, they use these things quite interchangeably. But I think it's important to know whether you're being asked as a trainer to help people be more creative generally, or whether what the organization is looking for is particular areas of innovation. Lucy's suggesting innovation can be more incremental, creativity tends to be more idea-based. Yeah, so there's clearly some debate about these words, and I think sometimes, particularly when we're talking to clients, it's really important to explore the differences of those two words. So when I was thinking about this, and again, I think it was Emma who'd said, you know, always learning, I went back to look at a learning model that we came across a few years ago, and happened to get involved kind of pretty early with it. It's something called the Effective Lifelong Learning Inventory, or ELLI for short. For those of you who don't know about this, it came out of a research study from the Graduate School of Education in Bristol, probably a good few years ago now. And it was part of a large meta-study, so looking at all the research that was out there about what makes a good learner. So, and a huge amount of research was looked at as part of this study. And if you want more information, you can go to that link, and we'll follow up after this with these slides so that you can get a hold of it. And basically, there was two key outputs from that study. One is that when they looked at and did a factor analysis, there were really 7 key areas of what they called learning power. So these were all of the things that they grouped together to make a good learner. And if you're not aware of these, I'm sure they won't surprise you, particularly if you've been involved in learning and training. The first was this idea of critical curiosity. So, you know, I guess the why that you get typically from a 3-year-old toddler, but why daddy, but why mummy, but why, but why? The next was meaning making, so actually making sense and linking one piece of learning to another, or something to another. Back to this word creativity, so sometimes taking disparate things to make something new, or just pure imagination to create something that didn't exist before. Resilience was also important. In fact, the factor was fragility, so the lack of fragility. So this idea that learning is tough, and good learners understand that learning is tough, and therefore they're prepared to work at it and not give up early. A fifth one around strategic awareness, and that's an understanding of what makes you a good learner. So maybe, well, I need some space to go away and read this, or I need to be able to sit down and watch, or I need to be able to talk this over with someone, and really having that strong understanding. And this was aimed originally at education, so it comes from schooling, both at high school level and into university. And then the sixth one was about learning relationships. Do you have somewhere to go to when you struggle, whether it's a peer, a mentor, a relative, whatever that may be, but knowing what those are and when you need them, but equally when you need some time of your own. And then more latterly, they've said that all of this comes together in changing and learning, being able to change. But that idea of having a growth mindset, that unless you actually believe you can learn something and believe you can change, then you won't do it. And I think it's particularly important when we're talking about helping people become more creative, or helping groups and teams become more innovative, that probably all of these 7 areas are really important. So again, if you're interested in this whole idea about getting people to become better learners, because we did some early work on it, we created a series of modules that focus on each one of those. So again, if you're interested in that, please come back to us and we can talk a little bit more. So what happens with the instrument they created is that you get this kind of spider diagram you can see down in the bottom right. So this is based on your self-scored questionnaires, and the idea is, think of the blue like a balloon. The bigger it gets, the stronger your learning power is. Of course, all of these are interconnected, and as you go through life, they will go up and down. But what was really interesting in some of that early research for me was that when they'd studied people at different ages around, and I think they've had now over 100,000 people have used this instrument. But what really struck me, being interested in education generally, I guess, was that balloon, if you like, of learning power decreased almost uniformly from the age of 12 to somewhere around the early 20s. So whatever we were doing, particularly in Western formal education, we actually were decreasing people's ability to learn through their high school and university engagements. I just find that still staggers me every time I think about it. So it doesn't start to rise until around 24. So particularly if you're working with young people in areas of creativity and innovation, it's something to consider. But also those of us, you know, at the other end of the spectrum, like me, still have that strong paradigm of formal education in our background. So take a guess at which of those 7 areas you can see declined the most when they measured it. Just drop some suggestions in the chat. So there's 7 things there. You know, there were 2 or 3 which seemed to decline faster and more consistently than the others. Okay, I think I've been rumbled. A couple for creativity straight away. Critical curiosity, meaning making, and creativity for the ones that dropped first of all. Again, so this idea of saying but why, not always favoured in certainly some of the classrooms I used to be in. I think it's a little bit better, but you see some of that in many organisations. Look, it's a process. Don't ask why. Just go ahead. Meaning making, you know, doing that, lifting from one silo to another, one subject to another. Again, we tend to teach the subjects in blocks. And then again, this idea of creativity. Kim and I were talking just before it, and anyone who's got school-aged children, when you're helping them with their homework. I remember my daughter coming back with her maths and say, "Dad, can you help me?" And then she would say, "But that's not the way the teacher does it. You know, no, I don't want to learn another way. You know, just show me. Let's do the same way the teacher showed me how to do my arithmetic." So again, it's kind of inbuilt. So getting people to go against these things was a bit of a challenge. Resilience, strategic awareness, learning relationships, all of these things actually declined over that period. So again, if you're interested in that, I think it's useful, but it's also useful to think in the context just specifically in terms of looking at creativity and innovation. So just to summarize, I guess, some of the things to think about, particularly when we were talking about adults in organizations, is, as I say, if you're wanting to build this idea of critical curiosity, does the culture of the organization or even the role encourage this? You know, I've had talks with chief executives say we need to be more innovative and creative, and say, do you really want everyone in your organization to be questioning why they're being asked to do something every time, or are there particular periods for it? Are there opportunities to use meaning making? Are there opportunities to say, well, we do this in finance, let's look at what marketing does? You know, how are you creating those chances for people to make meaning when they're looking at being innovative? Does everyone need to be creative? Do you want your accountancy department to be creative? You know, or is it only your products department or your marketing department? How does this, maybe looking at that spider diagram, should it be slightly different for many organizations? And one we come across a lot, yeah, we've tried that before, organizations who have change fatigue, you know, just give up. You know, there's no point in trying to do anything else. We've done that many times. You see a lot being talked about now about individualized learning and the strategic awareness of people knowing how they learn. It is going to be different, and that needs to be taken cognizance of, I think. And then this idea of learning relationships, are they only in the workplace? You know, is it peers, is it mentors, is it coaching? A whole range of things that could be applied there. And then I guess for adults, it's this whole changing and learning, this mindset. You certainly can't force people to learn anything, but I think particularly in the areas of innovation, creativity, it really is about encouragement, setting those scenes and getting them to realize what they can do. And a lot of that is in the chat earlier on when you talked about getting people to be more creative and innovative. So our kind of ideas of tools and techniques and resources come from that kind of background. So having seen that, so that's our idea when we talk about how you might help organizations or individuals build innovation and creativity skills. So that's most of what I'm going to talk at you about. The rest of the time I want to just actually play a few things and hopefully give you some kind of ideas. The first thing I want to kind of follow a little bit of is what we call our breakthrough thinking workshop. And this is something we developed a number of years ago, having run a kind of one-day workshop around breakthrough thinking and helping groups of people to practice some of these techniques. And this was, you know, long before COVID and the problems with travel. But the idea was we would just put this into a workshop guide, 7 hours that people could go and use themselves. So I'm going to touch on some of the activities within that. But again, if you're interested in that, we can talk more about it. So generally, when people came along to this, what we were saying is the objectives were understanding this difference between creativity and innovation, as I say, because most of the time the application was for benefit of the organization who was paying them to be part of it. But recognizing the stage and the contributions that individuals can make, and maybe even at different times of that process. So not everyone needs to be in that early creativity stage. There are some good reasons for people coming into that process later on. Again, of course, we've got an opportunity to practice and rehearse a range of techniques to generate some new ideas and to apply some creative and innovative thinking principles in practical problem solving. We also looked at, my colleague Anne has a particular interest in coaching, and I think coaching is a perfect vehicle to helping people build innovation skills, and we'll touch a little bit on that. And then I think crucially for us, we wanted the opportunity for people before they left to work on a real life problem identified and selected by the group. So if that kind of learning objective suits you, then you can go and have a look at the contents of that workshop. So let's assume we're going to have a look at that. What is a good way of opening that type of program? And those of you who have seen some of our stuff before know that we're probably not great fans of icebreakers for the sake of it, but are great fans in having a good opening activity. So I'm going to start with something around this idea of creativity in its fullest sense. And again, this quote was just looking at some stages in a process. So for most individuals, when they go through this, and they may not go through all of these stages in order, but this idea of this preparation stage, and that might come from an internal idea or external, particularly if you're in an organization, so it might be a particular challenge. You then have to give people some time for these connections to form, and often, the best way of doing that is to actually take a break from it, go away, come back. If you talk to artists and musicians, quite often that's one of the things they'll do, just allow things to incubate in the background. The illumination consciously often appears to be an aha moment. You may get it out walking the dog or in the shower or wherever it may be, but again, it takes a little bit of time for that to happen. So trying to create those conditions in a training environment can be tough. And then this bit about honing and refining is really where you start to try out these ideas. So again, that's a kind of well recognized 4-stage model for individuals thinking about that. So let's go back and look again at look at an opening activity, sorry. And I like to use optical illusions for this. So I'm just going to throw a few things on the screen for you. So this is actually just the image of printed cards that we hand out people and take a bit of time. So the purple lines right across that screen, do they look like they're straight and parallel or curved to you? Just pop some stuff into chat for me. Do those horizontal purple lines look curved or straight to you? Okay, a couple of people thinking straight. Anyone see them as curved? Yeah, Okay, seem curved but are probably straight. Absolutely, yeah. What about this one? Which central circle is bigger? The ones on the left or the one on the right? Which looks bigger? Okay, yep, looks like the one on the right. In fact, if I printed this out, they're both exactly the same size. Hard to believe, but I assure you, if I printed it out, you would be able to see it. What about this one? How many black dots can you see on the screen? Anyone see any? Yeah, these ones now start to hurt your head a little bit. Yeah. Okay, Suzanne sees 25. Good. Every time I try and count them, they see them white, and all the ones just outside my vision are black. Okay, now this is I think an interesting one. So what I need you to do is that picture at the top of the screen, there are kind of 4 dots right in the middle. I want you just to stare at that maybe for 20 seconds or so. Okay, and then I want you to look away the screen, just if you've got a blank wall, just have a look at the blank wall, blink your eyes a couple of times and tell me if you see anything, see an image emerging on your blank wall. Just put something in chat, let the others know if you see anything. Hallelujah. Che Guevara, well, could be. Most people certainly see a face, and a lot of people say a yes. Oh my goodness, Jesus. Thank you, Emma. Yeah, so very, very strange. So what we're again trying to get people early on to in terms of noticing what happens is the first thing to notice that our brains do see things that don't exist. Okay, we've kind of just proved it. Some of them you might need to see printed out, but you know, and certainly they can make you see things that are surprising sometimes. And the main thing, you know, if we're leading into this is to try and remind people and make them understand what we're talking about in terms of outside influences, so they can change how you perceive things. So, you know, the kind of organization you're in, the people you're beside, your own personal approach to things is really quite important. So another activity which we often use as an alternative and an opening is something called challenging assumptions. A really popular activity in terms of ours. Just can you maybe just show me a thumbs up if you know this activity, and a thumbs down if you don't. I can just maybe probably see you on the screens. So Isabel doesn't know it, Lucy does, Emma does, and Suzanne knows it well. I know that. Okay, good. So maybe Isabel, you don't know this activity. Maybe I can ask you just to check something out. Would you mind opening your mic for me? And
open what?
Yeah, open the mic. That's great. Thank you, Isabel. So you don't know this activity?
No.
No. Great. So what we do, what you can see in it, it's a physical activity. So I'm going to try to describe what you're seeing and just ask you what you might think you would do. So this is a series of puzzle pieces, and what we do is they come in a bag. We literally empty them out on the table, and they fall onto the table, as you can see. And what we ask people to do is to put those puzzle pieces together. So I know it might be difficult to see, but you can see a number of kind of different shapes. If you were asked to do this, what kind of things would be going through your head, Isabel, as you would be trying to solve this puzzle and put them together? Any thoughts?
Well, there is the blue and the brown side, and there are the let's say pieces that are full and the ones that are more empty or have holes in it. So there's probably some play with that.
Okay. So what would your approach, what do you think physically you would try to do if you know, you were putting your hands on these pieces and starting to try and figure out the puzzle?
Maybe I would lay them out first, all in the same color, maybe, and have them all in front of me and try to make sense of that.
Sure. Okay.
Maybe see whether some of the empty ones would circle the full ones.
Okay. So that looks, would that be similar to what you were trying to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, that doesn't surprise me, because, and those of you who have done this activity will probably recognize that that's a kind of behavior that almost every group does. And why do you think people do that, Isabel? What conditions people to do that kind of behavior?
Well, probably we first try the most obvious option.
Okay. Anyone else who's done this before want to open their mic, and what kind of reactions do you get, and do you typically see this?
Yeah, very much like Isabel said, that initially everybody puts it, we put quite a lot of time pressure on it, which obviously doesn't necessarily sort of help, because we get all the excitement and a bit of a competition. They put it all the right way up. They put the squares straight away in the corners, because that's everything you've ever been taught. And even though we sometimes will start the activity to say we're going to explore the importance of curiosity, we're going to challenge our assumptions, and we're really explicit about it, and then it's just the most brilliant activity. I'm very happy to be our salesperson for challenging assumptions, because it's straight away, as soon as they're put into a little bit of a time pressure, they have the autopilot to just recall what they know rather than that curiosity. And then when you start to almost help them with you do a bit of a pause and give a few sort of, challenging some of those assumptions, it's then really interesting, because it isn't a pattern, and everyone keeps asking, what's the pattern, and so that they're then having to try and explore that. The breakthrough moment is realizing that you need to just try stuff and try different things, and you're almost tapping into that part of the brain that is the curious brain, to be creative.
Great, thank you, Emma. And again, maybe for Isabel's benefit, so this is the finished pattern that people are trying to achieve, and unless they, as Emma says, make that breakthrough about actually being comfortable with having it, painted side up for some pieces and unfinished for others, and you'll notice also that if they follow the pattern, which is, okay, I have the colored piece up and I have a kind of edge around it, that doesn't work for the last piece. And the number of times I've had groups of people, usually engineers like me, who say, yeah, it may work, but I don't like it. So Suzanne's got her hand up. Suzanne, do you have a question?
No, I have maybe an additional remark. It was a tip from Anne once to also ask the participants while they do it to share their emotions. And then you can also do a very good analysis with leading change and how people resist to change, because they have a lot of excitement at the beginning, thinking, oh, I know how to do this, and then it falls and the curve. And then as soon as they start to find a solution, it's really like the Kabler-Ross learning curve. And so I think I agree with Emma. I can also pair to sell it. I probably have sold some already.
Yes, thank you. As it was Anne that developed it, I'm quite proud of to be able to say that. Yeah, I think it's one of the best activities that she has designed, and I really like it. But it fits in really well with some of the research that we just talked about, and most people's approach to innovation. And that's why for most people it's really difficult, because as humans we're conditioned to follow patterns, and everything we do in terms of learning something new or creating something new is affected by what we did previously. It's just the way our brains are hardwired. But in terms of challenging assumptions, in terms of creativity, I think it's really important to talk about that this first step, the very first step to achieve something innovative, is to recognize what your existing patterns. And again, for those of you who haven't used it, it seems crazy that people would follow a particular pattern, but I've had groups of people who have turned all the pieces over to the one color, and you've asked them what they've done and they can't tell you. It's so automatic, you know, to be able to say to people, I know you are, you know, I know an assumption you've already made, and they say, well, how could you possibly? I haven't said anything, because the behavior gives it away. And as I say, that existing pattern then informs our thinking as we move into the new situation. So this idea about blue surrounded by the non-colour or the unfinished colour. However, clearly some positive assumptions can be helpful, but mostly it's the negative ones that block new approaches, and that's everything about, as Susanna was talking about, emotions as well as the actual thinking process. So another way of looking then at this idea of meaning making is connections and getting people to do that more naturally. So it's a key aspect to make these new and unusual connections between things that already exist. And again, we've got a set of innovation images which we sell separately, which we use as part of this breakthrough thinking workshop that I mentioned earlier on. So what I'm going to ask you to do, and in this case, rather than do it in chat, just when you have something, you can just open your mic. So I'm going to show you some pictures just now. Sorry, in a minute or so. Now, what I'd like you to do is what we call forced connections. So I want you to create groups of 4 cards, okay? So I want you to pick out 4 cards that belong to a set because of a common link. So I'm not looking for a story that goes through the 4 cards. So here are your cards here. I want you to look at these cards. This is just a small selection, and give me a subject that would link 4 of those cards and what those 4 cards are. So just open your mic and give me the link and give me 4 cards if you can.
I can go with animals, just that
Okay.
you've got 4 animals, so fish, sheep, bat and rat or mouse.
Okay, fine. Thanks, Emma.
And there's water, the glass, the, how do you call that? The robinet. I don't know the word in English.
And is it the well in the top right?
Yep, and then the one that is on the bottom line, the second row, the second column.
Okay.
And then the
tap
pond.
and the tap and the pond. Okay. Okay, that's 4 to do with water. I can see another one that I would link with water. Give me a 5th one. One
Well,
to
the
add to
fish.
Isabel's 4. Fish. Okay, give me one more. Give me 6. Give me one more to add to that in terms of water.
Well, the tree, the trunk.
The trunk. Okay, could be. Give me another one.
The curl looks like a water softener. Yeah.
This top left. Okay.
Yeah.
I would say it's a spring. And of course, a spring in English can also be water. So so you can look at these things in 2 ways as well. And I know this is difficult for the non-English speakers, but I don't know if this works in other languages, but certainly in English. So how about giving me 4 things that would relate to a computer?
The mouse.
Yes.
Ah, that's good. That's really good.
The pilot.
Oh, I've just seen Laura put log on. So like log. Oh my gosh,
absolutely.
that's so clever. You're all much more with
How
it.
does the pilot relate to a computer?
Well, because maybe a plane would be able to fly on its own with a computer.
Okay, I think that's more of a story. So I'm looking for a direct link between the picture and the word computer. But keep going. There's a couple more in there, I think.
Boot.
Boot, absolutely.
Yes.
You boot up a computer. So as you can see, there's about 48 on these, and what we ask people to do is to think of more and more obscure. So again, you're forcing people into that idea of a connection that's not obvious, and getting them starting to move into more of a creative mood. So again, the outputs on that is, to think about seeing things in a different way. But I think this one's quite important as well, changing your language and noticing if your perception changes. So you know, if you talk about suppliers and competitors, that conditions you rather than partners or, you know, potential, you know, joint venture or whatever it may be. So sometimes even just using and changing the language makes a difference. That's no problem. Suzanne's had to leave. So yeah, so sorry, let me go back. So yeah, this idea of seeing things that are have something in common to make these new ideas. This is like, these are the same in this way, is a really useful way of starting that process of creativity or innovation. Again, those of you who have spent some time with us will realize that we are big fans of using visual imagery. And this idea of using pictures and images really physiologically accesses different parts of your brain than just working with words. And it really can help you to see or understand things differently, particularly using the idea of metaphor. So metaphor will take you into a much wider range of ideas that at first sight you might not seem relevant to the solution you seek. And I'm going to give you a little idea and method of doing that, really, really simple. And we happen to use our Express pack. So this is a selection of images, photos, techniques that you can use for a wide variety of things. And again, people have made their own through postcards and so on. But it's an alternative to brainstorming. So it's about forcing, like we just did, but to a specific problem this time. So if I said to you, what might we do, either something you could recommend to me or something you could take away to improve the application of skills from this webinar? Okay, so stick with me. For some people, this may feel a little bit different. So what I want you to do is to have a look at that image on the right there. I'm going to blow it up in a second. So how might you force a connection between that picture and how we might improve application of skills from this webinar? Again, just feel free to open the mic and yell something out, or if or put it on chat.
It's having our emotions involved.
Okay, great. Yep. So I have to find a way of getting your emotions connected better, or when you leave, how would you connect emotionally to what we've just done so that you could do it? Okay, perfect. Let me do another. So same question, different picture. Improve the application of skills. What does this, give me an idea that this picture might suggest?
Make sure the learning doesn't get buried.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. I like it, Lucy. Good. Not quite sure how I'm going to do that, but that's the idea. And then one final one.
Have some fun.
Have some fun. Yep. Big part of learning, that emotional connection, and having fun is obviously a good way to do it. Not always possible, but certainly is possible and should be encouraged, I think, when we're talking about innovation and creativity.
Oh, I went more for you shouldn't flog a dead horse.
Absolutely. Knowing when to stop. I like it, Laura.
I had screaming in my head, Laura, so shows where I was going.
Yeah. So moving on, creativity in teams. So obviously, probably most of you know, there's lots of good research out there that, you know, just having homogeneous teams can really stifle innovation and creativity. Certainly those involved in recruitment will know that it's good to bring in sometimes that little bit of sand that will create the pearl, but it does mean that conflict can result, and conflict is not always negative, and conflict can be really useful in terms of innovation and creativity. In fact, I would argue that you can't do it without it. You know, I work with highly creative people, which means we've got a lot of challenge, a lot of conflict, but it makes it worthwhile because it does spark some good ideas. And it's limited if we edit our thinking, and going back to that, you know, the laughing horse one, that's what it reminded me of. You know, sometimes, particularly with new teams, you know, we edit our own thinking because we believe our ideas might be irrelevant, stupid, or inappropriate, you know. But the idea, particularly in team working, is that, you know, the connection someone else will make to something you've said can be valuable, you know. So it's easy to say in a brainstorming, you know, no ideas are off the table, but sometimes it's quite difficult to do, and you need practice as a group. So this idea, and you know, if you don't feel that you're most creative, working with teams and allow others to benefit from the stimulus of your ideas is a good way for people to feel that. So let's have a little play at that just to show it. So what I'm going to do is I've got a newspaper headline here, and the newspaper headline was "Bell rings, man dies, bell rings." Now, some of you maybe have done this before. If you have, you know, please don't spoil it with the full story. But what I'd like you to do is to tell me the story behind that newspaper headline. And you'll find that out by asking me some questions. Okay, you can only ask me a closed question, so something I can answer yes or no to. So go ahead and see if you can spend a couple of minutes trying to find out what the story was about. Remember, we just talked about not editing your thinking.
I've got a question, Graham. Is it chronological?
It is, yes.
Thank you.
I had to think about what that word meant there, but okay. No questions too stupid, just fire questions at me.
Doorbell?
No.
Church bell?
No.
Is it a big bell?
Which?
Oh, which one? Is the first one a big bell?
No.
Is the last one a big bell?
No.
It's not a jing. Is it a jingle bell?
No.
Is it Santa?
No.
Is it a physical type of bell?
Yes.
Does someone kill the man?
No.
Does the man die of old age?
No.
Is it a town crier?
No.
Is the man dying linked to the bell ringing?
Yes.
Is it an electric bell?
No.
Is he killed by the bell?
No. Give you another couple of minutes. Just keep asking questions. Try and build on other thoughts you get from the questions that others have asked.
Is rings the sound the bell makes?
Yes, it's a description of the onomatopoeic sound, I think, that bell rings. Yeah. So, yeah, it's the sound of a bell ringing.
And man dies is a man is dead.
Yes.
And he dies between the two bell rings.
Yes.
Was the bell ringing a surprise to him?
No.
Did he ring the bell?
Great question. No. Another good question.
Is
Does
man
someone
dies? Sorry.
Go ahead.
Is man dies some sort of weird Latin song that a bell ring would make?
No, no. A man did die.
Are the three headings connected?
Yes.
Is it in a theatre or a
No.
school?
No.
Is the location important?
Yes.
Oh, good
Is
question.
it in a church
No.
or a cathedral?
No.
Is it in a place of religion with a bell?
No.
Does the bell ring on itself?
Yes.
For whom does the bell toll?
Oh, is the bell on a bicycle?
No.
Is it at sea?
Yes.
Is it what?
At sea.
Sea.
So is the bell like on a big buoy?
No.
Sorry, I'm making the shape with my hands. You can't see.
It's at sea.
You're definitely now in the right direction. I'll give you a little bit of time more.
see.
Give me as many questions as you can.
Is it something to do with the ship's bells, as
Yes.
in the timings?
Does the bell ring because the man will die?
No.
It's just between the two ship's bells.
No, that's not what I said.
Okay.
And
Is
does
it
the
one
bell
ship?
ring because the man died?
No, the bell doesn't ring because a man died.
Mm.
What was that, Laura? Sorry?
Is it two ships?
No.
Did the bell ringing wake him up?
No.
Did the bell ringing, the original bell ringing, signify something to him which made him do something?
Yes.
And he got the wrong bell?
Yes.
Was it an alarm bell?
Yes.
Did the man jump overboard because he thought it was an alarm bell?
No.
Ah.
Okay. You're absolutely on the right lines. So what we're showing here is even closed questions asked creatively where no editing can get a lot of information. So you've gone from where you are to being pretty close. The story behind it was a blind man who used to go swimming in the sea every day. He used to set his alarm clock on the beach, and when the alarm clock rang, he would swim back towards the bell, but a boat was passing that had a very similar sounding alarm, and he swam the wrong way and drowned. And then the bell rang on the beach after that. So, and the way we tend to do it is to give everyone some counters and have the counters dropped in. So you can only ask a question if you've got a counter, and it makes everyone come up with questions, even if it's the most ridiculous, just to get rid of their counter. And it's a good way of getting some building on each other's questions. So a little bit of fun. So some other things you might want to do as well in terms of team, let's build in some ideas from other trainers. Those of you who have ever been in this situation, and I have, is that you arrive somewhere and your kit doesn't. So that's a little handy book, find something to do from a colleague in the States who's got some team building activities in a book that you can do when you've got no materials. Always useful. Something similar in terms of looking at multicultural. So team activities in different language that Jim has translated. That's the question. Performance Cube, this is an activity we developed by some others, and it doesn't naturally, I think, fit into most people's ideas of innovation and creativity. But one of the biggest challenges that we come across in organizations is this idea of silos and teams. And the way this activity works is getting people to, first of all, play the game as an individual, and then the rules change halfway through, where you only get points and bonus points if you can work together as a team. And it's really interesting to view what happens in terms of the change of behaviour and also in terms of the creativity. So relatively new, but one we developed with some colleagues in the States. Again, a different group of colleagues in the States, Electric Maze as a leadership activity is really interesting. And one of the biggest challenges for people when they do this is if you imagine trying to walk through a maze, sometimes the best thing you can do is go backwards to go forwards. And another few wrinkles in how this activity works. If that is of interest to you, come and have a chat. So I'm kind of conscious of time, so I want to run over and don't want to miss a couple of things. So I talked at the start about coaching, and obviously coaching allows an individual to develop their own ideas, but supported by someone else. And why shouldn't you and why can't you do that with innovation? And coaching, it can be of great value particularly in terms of building confidence and skills in innovative thinking. So the way we do this within our Breakthrough Thinking workshop, and again, we've pulled this out as a separate activity, is something called Mystery Object. And Mystery Object has actually got a couple of things in it, and I'm going to touch on just using the physical items. So you can see in this picture in the bottom left, these are some physical items that we provide as part of the kit. We call them Mystery Objects. There are 4 different types in it. but you also provide these Spark It cards. And this is a kind of like a mnemonic that people can follow when they're trying to think of a new use to put something to. So the P in Spark It happens to stand for put to use, and we've got some other materials that come to it. But I wanted to give you just a flavour of that through Mystery Object. So what I'd like you to think about, I'm going to play this little video in a while, and the way we do this usually is in pairs, but I'm going to show you a video of an object. And what I'd like you to think about is that you've just inherited some of these. You just moved to a new product development role in a new organization. Someone has given you this and said, you guys need to come up with a use for this. You know, this is a prototype that we've been given, and we don't want to color your thinking. So just give me some ideas about what you could do. So watch this video just for a minute or so, and then I'd like to hear if you could, any ideas off the top of your head for what you might use these objects for. So there's no sound, you'll just see a little bit of video of the object being manipulated around. So it's made of stainless steel. And you get a sense of the scale of it. So it's got this loop, and it's got some kind of stainless steel prongs. I think my colleague Jeff is beautifully modelling. So I've just been given this object. What do you think that could be a prototype for? What could you develop it into based on some of the characteristics that you see there? Any ideas?
I'd like to share, I'm going to share what I've used this activity. They absolutely loved it, and their suggestion for there was two. One's a little rude. One was I don't know the name of it, you know, the sinkhole cleaners, or on the bar, that it was there to the other was a nipple tassel. Carry on. Oh no, it's recorded. But I'm just saying, we did it though, but it was just phenomenal, some of the stuff that came up. I'm sharing those two that I remember.
No problem, thanks. Now, you might have been guided by Emma's suggestions there, but anyone get any other ideas of what springs to mind when you look at that?
I was just thinking jewellery.
Jewellery, yep.
I was thinking something that goes over your ear. So maybe I don't know what you'd put in it to go over your head, but you could put one on either side of your ear to kind of hold something over your head more.
Great. Okay. So that's the way we start the process. So getting people just to literally play about with it and think. But when we also give the partner a coaching sheet. So, and we find this really helps to move those ideas a little bit forward. So you've now got a bit of a process. So you've got questions, as I started to say, so what might it be? What kind of purpose could it serve? What do you think people do with it? Talk about some of the features you can see, what's it made of, how's it constructed, what makes it unusual. So really asking some good questions that help take that product idea on. And there's a process that would follow over a period of time, usually you get to the point where there's a kind of Dragon's Den pitch, and people will pitch their ideas and be voted on it. So it's a little bit of fun, but the other thing that's useful to remind people of at the start, and if I go back so you can see it, this is a real object. So this has a use. We haven't just kind of invented this or created this. We actually bought these because they have a real use. So can anyone think of what the real use of that might be?
If you have very sensitive ears and you want to stop people tickling them.
Okay. I'm not sure what I would put into Google to look for that, Laura, but so this is actually a Turkish tea strainer. So what the Turkish commonly use to strain their tea is to put that in the spout rather than at the end, and then they can just rinse the stainless steel under the tap. So we buy them either direct from Turkey or from Germany. And I think when you're talking about this process of innovation, you know, there's two ways to think about it. One is, well, what do we already have, which is what we're looking at here, but also what might be the market need for it. So someone has looked at it and said, well, how do we stop tea leaves getting into the cup? So you could do it after it leaves the pot, which is what we do in the UK, or you could do it before it reaches the cup, which is what the Turkish people do. So that's mystery object, and one of the ways of using that. And again, the idea is to hopefully towards the end, and I would urge you to do this, is to get people to practice with any of these techniques to some real world problems. You know, I think it's always worth reminding ourselves that experiential learning offers the opportunity to rehearse new skills and techniques, and it's risk-free. So while you've got them and you've been playing for some of this, why not get them to spend a bit of time applying some of these techniques to a real business problem, process problem, issue, whatever it may be. Because again, and sometimes clients don't understand that, you know, they want you to come in, give some tools and techniques and then leave. But being proficient needs practice, and changing behavior is difficult. So certainly if you can get leaders of teams to be able to do this, it's well worthwhile. The one I just showed you, we used, just to give you a little bit of an insight into one of the applications. We were working with one of the utility companies in the UK, and they had said to us they had run a suggestion scheme where they were rewarding people to come up with innovative ideas that they could have for the business. And essentially they had got zero input from the workforce, and they couldn't believe that there were no ideas. And when they did another survey, they asked people, why haven't you come up with any innovation ideas? And basically the answer was, well, we're an engineering company, we're all engineers, none of us are creatives, so you know, we don't have any ideas. So we use this problem to try and help people understand that yes, you can be creative, you know, and there's lots of parts to play in that creative process. So we got them to go through some sessions working with mystery object and got them to free up their mind. So it was more about mindset than anything else. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges for people. And then finally, obviously, as in any training, you need to ensure some individual commitment. You know, you can't get teams or organizations to be creative. You can only get the people within them. So I'm pretty much spot on 5 o'clock, but happy to answer any questions any of you have, or indeed if you've heard enough from me, I'm also happy to let you go and enjoy the rest of your evening. So just open the mic or stick them on chat. Let me just open chat and see if we've got some. Okay, Lucy, no problem. Thank you for joining us. Any questions from Emma or Isabel or Laura?
Yeah, no, so I was going to say nothing from me, but Laura.
Great.
No,
Thanks, Emma.
Question around taking that innovation idea a bit further around failure.
Mm-hmm.
And encouraging people to consider how to learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a particular way that you would use anything that you've shown today, or something else that would work well for that?
Yeah, I think the word failure, and Emma talked about it before as well. You know, I always like to go back and check people's understanding of words that they use. So failure is a word that's used a lot, you know, and any type of learning involves some kind of failure, you know, and most people would learn more from failure. So whether you take the links from sport, so someone like Michael Jordan talked about, you know, how many times he failed to score a basket, you know, not how many times he did it. So there's a bit about exploring what the word actually means. But if you go back to even the activity that we did there with the yes/no questions, a lot of the so-called stupid questions that got a no were the ones that led you forward. So all that a failure, and you can look at it, you know, through all sorts of diagrams, all a failure does is to open another route. So that's the way I would probably do it. Look at failure through any of the activities you've done and how they move you forward to getting to some kind of innovation.
And if I framed it slightly away from the word failure, which I agree can be quite emotive, more to sort of that idea of learning from your mistakes, and having that attitude of continuous learning, would your answer vary a bit, or would it be the same?
I don't think it would vary. You know, I get the point about, you know, even failure or mistake. You know, innovation is generally about attempting something. So, you know, for me, it's the number and the type of attempts you make rather than the things that don't work. you know, and so yeah, I would still approach it in a similar way. I think it has to be, you can't have innovation or creativity without mistakes or things that don't work, you know.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
Need to go now.
Okay,
Appreciate
thanks a
it.
lot.
Good to
Okay,
see.
thanks
everybody.
Thank
So-
you, Graham.
No problem. Thank you, Isabel.
Really, really useful. Thank you. I sent Kim a message about something else, about strategic thinking, not around creative innovation, but I'm about to go online now and buy some of it. It's fabulous. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Emma. You're my best saleswoman. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.